What if the reason you feel small is because you're actually not? Here's something nobody tells you. The universe doesn't have a center. Not one. Anywhere. Which means wherever you're standing right now, on your kitchen floor, on a bus, in a bathroom at 2 a.m., you are, mathematically, as valid a center as any point that exists. So when you feel insignificant, when you feel like you're the one person the universe forgot to make matter, I want to ask you something. What if that feeling isn't a truth you discovered? What if it's just a story someone handed you, and you've been carrying it ever since, not because it fits, but because nobody ever showed you how to put it down? I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I mean a long time. My whole career, if I'm being honest with you, has been about one thing underneath all the equations and the lectures and the Nobel Prize they gave me, and then spent 30 years asking me to talk about. One thing. I've been trying to figure out what's actually true, not what sounds true, not what makes people feel comfortable at parties, what is actually, genuinely, verifiably, breathtakingly true. And the most disturbing thing I've found, the thing that keeps me up at night not with anxiety, but with a kind of electric excitement, is that almost everything we've been taught about our size in this universe is wrong. Not a little wrong. Backwards wrong. Wrong in the way that changes everything once you see it. So I want to talk to you about that today. Just you and me. No textbooks. No jargon. I'm going to talk to you the way I'd talk to a friend on a porch somewhere, with the stars out and enough time to say the real thing instead of the safe thing. And here's my promise to you. By the time we're done, the universe is going to feel different. Not smaller, not bigger. Different. You're going to have a new way of standing in it. And that shift in how you stand is worth more than any single fact I could give you. Let me start with something that might sound impossible. There are more atoms in one of your fingernails than there are stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Let that actually land for a second, because we have a habit of letting big numbers wash over us like a warm shower. Pleasant, brief, and immediately forgotten. Don't do that here. Stay with me. The Milky Way, our galaxy, the thing that has inspired poets and sailors and every single science fiction writer who ever lived. The system that contains, by current estimates, somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. Each one of those stars a sun, many of them larger than our own, burning with nuclear fire, generating energy at scales that make our entire civilization look like a struck match. That galaxy, that incomprehensibly vast, ancient, spinning structure of light and gravity and mystery, contains fewer stars than the dead cells you clipped off your finger last Tuesday. You are not looking up at complexity. You are complexity. And yet somehow, we've collectively agreed to feel tiny when we look at the sky. We look at all those stars and we shrink. We look at the math, the actual math, the real numbers, and the math says the opposite of what we feel. So who taught us to read the universe backwards? And why, in the name of everything that's interesting, haven't we stopped? I think the answer to that question matters more than most people realize, because the way you feel about your size in the universe is not a trivial philosophical question. It's not something to put on a bumper sticker and forget about. It shapes, quietly, constantly, in ways you probably don't notice, how much permission you give yourself to live fully, how seriously you take your own life, how much you allow yourself to want things, and build things, and love things, and pursue the particular strange and beautiful thing that only you are positioned to pursue. If you believe you're a rounding error, a temporary smudge of chemistry on an unremarkable rock orbiting an average star, then at some level, some very deep and pernicious level, you're going to live like a rounding error, you're going to make yourself small, you're going to apologize for taking up space, you're going to look at your own dreams and think, who am I to want that? And I want to challenge that, not with empty encouragement, not with the kind of you matter energy that sounds wonderful and means nothing. I want to challenge it with physics, with actual science, with the real picture, because the real picture, it turns out, tells a completely different story than the one we've been handed. Now, I want to give you two stories before I give you the ideas, because I've learned something from many decades of teaching and thinking and being absolutely wrong about things and having to figure out how to be less wrong. And what I've learned is that a good story opens a door that pure argument can never quite reach. So let me open two doors for you. The first story is about an ant. Imagine, if you will, an ant walking across an architect's blueprint. A big, detailed blueprint, the kind that maps out an entire building, every room, every corridor, every pipe and wire and load-bearing wall. The ant is doing what ants do, moving with purpose, sensing its environment, responding to the texture of the paper beneath its feet. It can feel the slight ridge where one line was drawn more heavily. It can navigate around the edges of symbols. It has, in its small way, a rich and complete experience of the surface it's crossing. But here's what the ant cannot do. It cannot see the building. It cannot stand back and perceive the blueprint, as a representation of something larger, a plan, a human intention translated into lines and measurements. The ant is crossing the map, but it has no access to the territory the map describes. Now, the easy conclusion, the one most people jump to, is that the ant is ignorant, that the ant is missing something crucial, that the ant's experience of the blueprint is somehow lesser or insufficient because it lacks the big picture. But here's the thing that stopped me cold one afternoon when I was thinking about this. The ant is not merely crossing the blueprint. The ant is part of it. The same physical universe that generated the architect's intelligence, that generated the inspiration for the building, that generated the wood pulp in the paper and the carbon in the ink. That same universe generated the ant and the ant's nervous system and the ant's capacity to navigate. The ant isn't outside the meaning. The ant is woven into the same fabric as the meaning. It just can't see it from where it's standing. And we are the ant. We cannot see the full blueprint. We probably never will. Not completely. Not from where we're standing. The universe is too large, too old, too strange in its deep structure for us to hold all of it in our small, brilliant, limited minds. But that doesn't mean we're outside the meaning. It doesn't mean we're incidental to the pattern. We are made of the same stuff as the pattern. We are the universe's way of locally noticing itself, of asking questions about itself, of being briefly, magnificently, specifically awake to its own existence. And the question I kept turning over after I thought about that ant, the question I want you to hold is this. If the ant can't see the blueprint, what can it see? What does the ant have access to that the architect doesn't? And is that enough? I'll come back to that. But first, let me tell you the second story. There was a period in my life. I won't dwell on the specifics because this isn't about me, it's about the physics. There was a period when I was in real pain, the kind of pain that makes even the things you love feel like they're behind glass. You can see them, you just can't quite reach them. The equations were still there on the blackboard. The curiosity was still somewhere inside me, buried under the weight of loss. But nothing felt like it mattered the way it had before. And one night, this is a night I still think about, I was sitting alone and there was a candle on the table. Just a small candle, the kind you might light without thinking about it. And for some reason, that night, I really looked at it, not at the flame as a pretty thing, at the flame as a thing I actually understood. Because I do understand it. Fire is not magic. Fire is rapid oxidation. It's carbon atoms in the wax combining with oxygen atoms in the air, releasing the chemical energy that was stored in those molecular bonds, and part of that released energy expresses itself as light, as photons streaming outward in every direction. The flame is not creating energy. It's transforming it, releasing it from one configuration into another, briefly reversing the local tendency toward disorder, what we call entropy, in order to make heat and light. That's what a candle is, that's what I was looking at, and something happened as I sat there and watched it. Something I did not expect. I started to cry, not sad crying, something else, some kind of recognition. Because the thing I was looking at, This small, ordinary, chemically comprehensible thing was doing exactly what I was doing. It was taking stored energy and turning it into something that could affect the world around it. It was, in its own small way, pushing back against disorder. It was making a little pocket of light and warmth in the darkness, and the darkness was very large, and the candle was very small, and it was doing it anyway. The grief I felt didn't get smaller when I understood that, but it got real in a new way. It became something I could hold, rather than something that was holding me. Because if the universe could make a candle, and the candle could make light, and the light could reach my eyes and change the chemistry of my experience, then the universe was not separate from what I was feeling. The universe was feeling it through me. The pain was real. The pain was information. The pain was proof that I was connected to the candle, to the wax, to the oxygen, to the stars that forged the carbon in all of it, billions of years ago, before any of this story had a storyteller. When you understand that everything you experience, including your worst moments, is the universe happening through you, suffering doesn't become trivial. It becomes intimate. The universe isn't doing this to you, it's doing this as you. And that distinction, I promise you, changes the quality of every moment you live in from here forward. Now, I said I'd give you ideas, not just stories, and I intend to keep that promise. So here are the things I actually believe, the conclusions I'd stake my reputation on. Some of them are going to feel strange before they feel true. That's how the good ones always feel. The first and most important thing, size is the wrong variable. This is so fundamental and so almost completely ignored in how we talk about our place in the universe that I want to take some time with it. We have developed as a civilization a kind of instinctive equation. Big equals important, small equals insignificant, and it feels obvious, doesn't it? A mountain is more significant than a pebble. An ocean is more significant than a puddle. A galaxy is more significant than a solar system. Therefore, a galaxy is more significant than a person, but this equation, when you actually examine it, falls apart immediately, not philosophically. Physically, a photon is approximately zero size. A photon is a particle with no mass and no spatial extent in the way we normally think about such things. And a single photon, one single massless, sightless, zero-sized particle of light, carries information. It carries quantum information that cannot be copied, cannot be perfectly duplicated anywhere in the universe, and which, if you trace its history back far enough, connects to the specific nuclear reactions of the specific star that emitted it, which connects to the specific gravitational dynamics that formed that star, which connects in principle through an unbroken chain of causation to the first moments of the universe itself. One photon, no mass, no size, infinite causal ancestry. Or consider a virus. A virus is so small that we cannot see it with our eyes. We cannot see it with most microscopes. It exists at the boundary between what we consider alive and what we consider merely chemistry. And a single virus, one tiny, simple, almost absurdly minimal structure of protein and genetic material, can, under the right circumstances, spread through an entire global population and bring the most complex civilization in the planet's history to a complete stop. Size and power are not the same thing. Size and significance are not the same thing. The universe doesn't rank its components by volume. It operates on a completely different principle. It operates by relationship and interaction. Things matter, in the only sense that anything can matter in a physical universe, by virtue of what they do to other things, by virtue of their causal reach, their influence, their capacity to change the state of the system around them, and by that measure, the only measure that actually means anything. You are one of the most significant configurations of matter that has ever existed in the 14 billion-year history of this universe. Think about what you actually are. You are a system of roughly 37 trillion cells, each one containing a complete copy of a genetic instruction set that took 4 billion years of iterative, selective, ruthlessly competitive evolution to produce. Each of those cells is running thousands of simultaneous biochemical reactions, coordinating with its neighbors through chemical signaling, electrical impulses, mechanical forces. Your brain alone contains approximately 80 to 6 billion neurons, each one forming connections, synapses, with up to 10,000 others. The number of possible connection states in a single human brain is larger than the number of atoms in the observable universe. And then, on top of all of that hardware, there is you. There is the particular, irreplaceable, never-before-existed and never-to-be-repeated pattern of experience and memory and perspective and love and curiosity that is specifically, exactly, only you. That pattern has never existed before in the history of the universe. It will never exist again after you. The causal reach of that pattern, the ripples it sends through the lives of the people around you, through the work you do, through the children you raise or teach or simply smile at in a moment when they needed it, extends outward in ways you will never fully see or be able to measure. A whale is bigger than a thought. Which one has changed more worlds? The second thing I want to tell you is this: you are not young. You only think you are. This is a reframe that I find genuinely life-altering, and I want to offer it to you carefully, because it requires holding two ideas at the same time that feel contradictory. On one hand, your conscious life is brief. Your body will last, if you are very lucky, about 100 years. Your memories begin somewhere in early childhood, in the grand timeline of the universe. 14 billion years and counting. You are an eye blink. That part is true. Don't let anyone take that truth away from you, because truth, even uncomfortable truth, is always more useful than comfortable fiction. On the other hand, the matter you are made of is almost as old as time. Every atom in your body was forged in the interior of a star. Not a metaphor, not a poem. Chemistry. The carbon in your cells, the oxygen in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the iron that makes your blood red. All of it was created in the nuclear furnaces of stars that lived and died before our solar system existed. When those stars ran out of fuel, they exploded. They went supernova, scattering their contents across space. That scattered stellar material, over hundreds of millions of years, coalesced under gravity into new systems, including ours. Our sun formed, planets formed. And on one of those planets, in the shallow oceans of an early and violent world, the chemistry of life began to organize itself from that ancient stellar material. You are not a visitor to this universe. You are not a newcomer who arrived recently and is still finding their footing. The atoms that make you up have been participating in this universe for nearly as long as the universe has existed. They have been inside stars. They have drifted through interstellar space. They have been part of every previous arrangement of matter that the history of this planet has produced. Every creature, every ocean, every mountain, every forest. And now, temporarily, for this specific and unrepeatable window of time, they have arranged themselves into you. What would it feel like to stop treating yourself as a guest in this universe and start treating yourself as a local? What would change about the way you make decisions, the way you inhabit your own life, if you genuinely internalize the fact that you are not a newcomer here? That your constituent parts have been part of this conversation since nearly the beginning? I don't have a complete answer to that question, but I've been sitting with it for years, and it never stops producing something useful. Now, I want to tell you something about uncertainty, because this is where it gets genuinely strange. This is where physics starts to say things that sound almost mystical. Not because they are mystical, but because the universe is actually stranger than our ordinary intuitions are built to handle. In quantum mechanics, the physics of very small things, the physics of atoms and electrons and photons, there is a principle called the observer effect. At the quantum level, the act of measuring or observing a system changes that system. An electron that hasn't been observed exists in what we call a superposition of states. It is, in a very precise technical sense, in multiple states simultaneously, and it only settles into one specific state when it interacts with something else, including a measurement apparatus. including, at some level, an observer. Now, I want to be very careful here, because this principle gets wildly abused by people who want it to mean something it doesn't. The observer effect does not mean that human consciousness creates reality. It does not mean that if you think happy thoughts, the universe will rearrange itself for you. That's not physics. That's wishful thinking with a scientific costume on, and I have very little patience for it. What the observer effect actually means is something more subtle, and I think more genuinely interesting. It means that at the most fundamental level we can access, the universe is not a fixed, pre-written story being played out indifferently, with us watching from the sidelines. It means that the universe is, in some deep and structural way, participatory. Interactions matter. Observations, in the physical sense, not just the human sense, matter. The universe is not a movie that runs whether you're in the theater or not. It is something more like a conversation where the participants are part of what's being said. You are not a spectator. You are a participant, and the universe has never had a participant quite like you before. Here's something that I think gets right to the heart of why so many people feel the particular flavor of cosmic despair that brought them to a video with this title. We've been given a story, a very old story, told in many different ways across many different cultures and centuries. And the story goes like this. The universe is vast, therefore you are small. The universe is old, therefore you are brief. The universe is indifferent, therefore you are alone. I want to challenge all three of those conclusions, not because they're painful. Truth is often painful, and I wouldn't change it for comfort, but because I think they don't actually follow from the evidence. The universe is vast, yes, but vastness and importance are, as we've already established, different measurements. The universe is old, yes, but you are made of the same old material. You are continuous with that age, not separate from it. And the universe is indifferent. Here is where I want to be most careful. Indifference is a category that applies to minds. It means having the capacity to care and choosing not to. The universe doesn't have that capacity, and so calling it indifferent is a category error. It's like calling a river unkind because it doesn't slow down for you. The river isn't unkind. It's a river. It's doing exactly what rivers do. And you are made of the same kind of water. The feeling of cosmic loneliness, I understand it. I felt it. Most honest people who think seriously about the universe have felt it. But I don't think it's a discovery. I think it's a misreading. I think it's what happens when you try to evaluate the universe using the wrong measuring stick. Let me tell you the last big idea, and then I'll tell you what to do with all of this. Wonder is not a luxury. Wonder is a survival skill. I've spent my life inside physics because I never got over being amazed. I never stopped finding things astonishing. The way light bends around a gravitational field. The fact that there is something rather than nothing. The strange, looping recursion of a mind trying to understand the universe that produced the mind that's doing the understanding. These things don't get less amazing the more you know about them. They get more amazing. Every answer opens 3 new questions, and the questions get better and better, and that is not a sign that we're lost. That is the sound of the universe working correctly. And the people I've met who live the fullest, most resilient, most genuinely engaged lives are almost never the people with the most certainty. They're the people with the most wonder, because wonder does something specific to your psychology. It keeps a question open. It prevents premature closure. It allows you to say, I don't know yet, without that phrase meaning defeat. And in a universe this complex, this strange, this full of phenomena that no one has ever adequately explained, I don't know yet, is not a weakness. It is the most honest, and therefore the most powerful position you can occupy. The feeling of smallness and insignificance, I've come to believe, is what happens when wonder has been replaced by conclusion, when we stop asking and start assuming we know the answer. The answer in this case being, you're small, you don't matter, the universe doesn't care. But those are not conclusions drawn from careful observation. They're conclusions drawn from a very specific kind of exhausted despair that masquerades as hard-headed realism. Real hard-headed realism, the kind I've tried to practice my whole life, requires you to keep looking, to keep asking, to stay with the question until you've actually found something true, rather than settling for something familiar. So now let me give you something practical, because I promised you that, and I keep my promises when I can. The first thing you can do, today, starting now, costs nothing, is this. Once a day, shift your scale deliberately. Take 2 minutes, start with yourself, right where you are, feel the weight of your body in your chair or on your feet. Notice that you are here, in a specific place, at a specific moment. Then, in your mind, zoom out, slowly. Your neighborhood, your city, the curve of the horizon becoming the curve of the planet, the blue sphere of Earth from space, the solar system, the planets orbiting the sun, the solar system shrinking to a dot as you pull back to the scale of the Milky Way, the galaxy itself becoming one of hundreds of billions in the observable universe. Go all the way out, hold that scale for a moment. Notice what it feels like. And then, this is the critical part, the part that makes this more than just a humbling exercise. Come back, all the way back. Back to the solar system, to Earth, to your country, to your city, to your street, to your building, to your room, to your chair, to your breathing. Back to you. And when you arrive back at yourself, try to feel not the smallness but the specificity. The fact that of all the possible arrangements of matter in this universe, here is this one. Here is you. Here is the universe, folding back on itself, locally aware, locally alive, locally, right here, right now, asking what it all means. That's not nothing. That's extraordinary. The second practice is simpler. I call it the Feynman question, and it's not complicated. Whenever you feel lost, overwhelmed, meaningless, when the familiar weight settles in and you start to believe the story about being a rounding error, ask yourself, what is actually true here, and how do I know? Not to dismiss the feeling. The feeling is real. Your emotions are real and they are data, and you should not try to logic them away, but separate the feeling from the conclusion it's trying to draw. The feeling of insignificant is a real feeling. The claim that you are insignificant is a hypothesis. And I have been a scientist for my entire adult life, and I can tell you with complete confidence, it is a poorly supported hypothesis. Examine the evidence. Look at the actual data of your life, not through the fog of the bad feeling, but with the best curiosity you can muster. What have you caused? What would be different if you had never existed? Whose life has been changed even slightly by your presence in it? What have you understood, created, noticed, loved? These are not rhetorical questions. They are measurement tools. Use them like one. The third thing is so simple that you might be tempted to dismiss it, and I'm asking you not to. Find one thing in your immediate physical environment that you don't understand. Not a thing you think you don't understand, a thing you genuinely, honestly, when you examine your assumptions carefully, actually do not know why it works the way it works. The way water drains in a spiral, the way a soap bubble is always spherical, the way your hand knows, without you consciously directing it, how to catch a falling object. Find that thing. And instead of immediately looking it up, sit with it for 60 seconds. Not to solve it, just to feel it, just to let yourself be genuinely, uncomplicatedly baffled. Because bafflement, real bafflement, the kind where you look at something ordinary and feel the genuine strangeness of it, is the beginning of wonder. And wonder, as I've tried to show you, is not decoration, it is the fundamental orientation toward existence that makes a human life feel worth living. It is incompatible with the feeling of insignificance. You cannot genuinely wonder at something and simultaneously believe that the thing doing the wondering doesn't matter. The two states cannot coexist. So, when you find one thing to be genuinely puzzled by, you are, in a very direct and physical way, replacing insignificance with participation. And now, let me bring this home. We started with a question, what if the reason you feel small is because you're actually not? We've been taking that question seriously, the way I think all good questions deserve to be taken seriously. Not brushed aside, not answered too quickly, but held and examined and turned over until it gives up something true. Here's what I think is true. I think the sense of cosmic insignificance that so many people carry is not a discovery, it's a habit. It was given to us by a culture that used the vastness of the universe not to inspire wonder, but to induce humility. And somewhere along the way, humility became smallness, and smallness became defeat, and defeat became the background hum of a life that could have been so much more fully inhabited. You are not small. You are, by the most meaningful measurements available to physics, one of the most complex and causally significant structures in the known universe. You are ancient. Your atoms predate the solar system by billions of years. You are participatory. Your existence, your specific and irreplaceable configuration of experience and memory and curiosity, is not irrelevant to the universe you inhabit. You are made of the same material as stars, and you have done something that no star has ever done. You have looked up. You are not broken. You've just been given the wrong measuring stick. The smallness you feel is not a measurement, it's a habit. And habits, unlike physics, can be changed. The mantra I'd leave you with is not a bumper sticker, it's a recalibration. Whenever the weight comes back, and it will, because that's the nature of habits that have been with us for years, I want you to remember this. I am not a visitor to this universe. I am not here by accident or by some cosmic administrative oversight. I am the universe, locally and temporarily awake, asking what it is. And that question, the fact that the question is being asked at all right here, through me, is the most extraordinary thing I know of in the entire history of the cosmos. Hold that. It's yours. Now, look. I'm a physicist. I've spent my life being wrong about things, and then less wrong, and then wrong in new and more interesting ways. I don't have final answers. I don't think anyone does, and I'd be deeply suspicious of anyone who claimed otherwise. What I have is a genuine and undiminished passion for the questions. And if anything in this conversation caught somewhere and stayed, if one idea landed differently than you expected, if something shifted even slightly in how you're holding all of this, I'd love to know what it was. Leave it in the comments, not because I'm fishing for engagement, but because someone else is going to come across this video at 2 in the morning, feeling exactly the weight you came in here carrying, and your 3 words about what shifted might be the thing that recalibrates them. That's a real causal chain. That's you participating in the universe, sending a ripple you'll never get to watch arrive. If this way of thinking about things, the real stuff, the strange stuff, the ideas that are uncomfortable before they're useful, if that's what you came for, there's more of it. The subscribe button is there. Use it if it resonates. Don't use it out of habit. You're already too interesting for that.